for those folks that are maybe unfamiliar with Crystal Lakes and their series, so they've been doing a series called the Dark Tide series, which so far is, you guys are lucky number 13, which I think is extremely fitting considering that this book is called The Devil's Backbone, Appalachian Horror. You each wrote a great story for this, so it's a anthology of 3. Would you guys mind going around and talking a little bit about what each of your stories is all about? Because we talked a little bit how it ties in, of course, with the Appalachian Mountains, but what did you do individually?
Mine starts out the collection. It's called A Foot in the Netherwild. It's set in 1880 Tennessee, East Tennessee. That section of the Devil's Backbone. The Devil's Backbone is like a fictional chain within the Appalachian Mountains, and it runs from just east of Lexington, Kentucky, through southwestern Virginia and to eastern Tennessee. That's so we really didn't have to depend on a lot of sticking to the details as far as places and stuff like that. So that gave us a little freedom to kind of take our own stories and set them in these like fictional towns and stuff within the Devil's Backbone. But my story has to do with a man named Bowden Ayers, and his 2 children have been abducted by this being known as the Coveter, who steals away the mountain's children, and with the help of a 7th son and a mountain shaman named Uriah Cold Creek, they go on a quest through the Devil's Backbone to find these children, and they end up in the Netherwild, an underground realm that the Coveter lives in. So I won't go too far into details, but that's where my story takes place.
And just to add on to that, Ron, one of the things that I think is so cool about your story too is the way that like you have included, because I've heard you talk on podcasts before about your grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way that you included those elements of like your family, and those sorts of like supernatural and like, for like specific to your family folklore is just one of the coolest things. I really loved how you included that in there. So
yeah, like I said, I think I said in another podcast that I have a scene where they go see an old granny woman up in the mountains, and I kind of took my 2 grandmothers and combined them into that one character. So
That's cool.
That was fun to write that character, because if you knew my grandmothers, one was really sweet and kind and compassionate. My other one had a little fire to her. She liked to gossip. She liked to stir up stuff. So it was fun combining the 2 into one character.
Yeah, I could see some conflict coming out of that, which of course works really well in a story. That's fantastic. Very cool. What about you, Red? How would you summarize your story that you have in here as well?
Well, I'm gonna let Laurel go next because it goes Ronald's story, and then hers is like about 50 years later.
Sure, that makes
kind of chronological. Also,
Sure. So we'll get to you in about we'll get to you in a few more years then, Red.
Yeah.
Also, I gotta reread it because I forgot what I wrote.
Yeah, so mine, I'm a chronic middle child, so it's kind of wedged here in the midst. But
yeah.
So mine is set in 1925, fictional town of Arnett, Kentucky, which is a little bit of a call out to The Stand, because I love The Stand and I love Stu Redman. So, but it's set during Prohibition, and you've got a coven of bourbon witches who have been living on the mountain and essentially distilling their own bourbon and kind of like intermingling that with utilizing the kind of the magic and everything in the mountain to develop cures, like not anything major, but the sort of like small things that Alia kind of things that they, then sell in the town down below, and they're kind of caretakers to an extent. And but then people start disappearing and being found dead, and as often happens, people start to point fingers, and so the witches kind of have to fall back a little bit and deal with some of that kind of thing. And I really enjoyed getting to use I come from a family of, I want to just say I come from a family of bootleggers. That makes it sound like we're all really cool. It was really just one lady. She was really awesome. But Georgie, she was my great great grandmother, and she was a bootlegger. She distilled, I think, moonshine and possibly bourbon. Is one of those things that like certain generations don't want to talk about. So you lose the information. You're like, damn it, that was cool, But
Yeah.
so it was fun to kind of get to include that a little bit.
So mine takes place approximately 50 years after that, in early 1970s, and it's about this area of the mountain, or really close to the mountain, where people have kind of settled and started building homes and stuff. And the people who live there kind of thrive off the land, but the mountain often wants to take things back. So mine is about a science-minded high school graduate who doesn't really believe in the magic and the folklore of the mountain that everybody warns people against, because there's this water hole called the Devil's Bathtub that they warn you shouldn't go in because it can bad things will happen. And he doesn't believe it. But then when his brother is away at Vietnam, more people start to go missing. People are acting strangely, and he's got to kind of figure out what to do to keep his people safe.
Very cool. Love the fact that you can get so much variety in storytelling just from one specific theme, which is pretty awesome. Which goes to show that they definitely got the right three people together here to really make the most out of the Appalachians, at least the parts that that aren't in Canada.